Believe in Bigfoot? Dogman? Any cryptid? Are you skeptical?
Curious about the supernatural, conspiracy theories, the unknown? Then come join us as we explore facts, tall tales, and encounters on Creatures and Curiosities.
Hello and welcome to Creatures and Curiosities. I'm David.
And I'm Jake.
In this week's episode, we are going to be talking about a very strange little entity called the Flatwoods monster.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, though, congratulations on being a new dad.
Thank you.
I think we mentioned it in the last episode.
Yes.
But little Jack is he's getting up there in age already.
Yeah, he's here. He's healthy. He's already not only meeting all his, how they have to like meet their weight requirements.
Oh, yeah.
Because back to birth weight and all. He's surpassing them.
Oh, nice.
All my kids are like in the 90th percentile of like height and stuff like that. So
cool. And they all got vaxxed and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, some of them. Not all of them.
Not all of them.
Yeah. We won't get into that, but
yeah. We'll have the anti-vaxxers on us and the pro-vaxxers on us, so it doesn't really matter.
You don't want kids to have measles. So.
No, God, no. And there's a lot of things you don't want your kids to get. Polio's coming back to our country.
Yeah, it's making a comeback.
Multiple cases in Arizona, and I know one in New York recently.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, wow. Okay. We had that eliminated for 50 plus years. I'm still sporting the big scars from it.
You never know. Maybe the Lord's getting sick of stuff, and he's like, let me start throwing some plagues back in there. I don't know.
Exactly.
I'm starting to get sick of stuff, so I can only imagine how.
Oh, I'd have already wiped the earth off if I were him. But so we got Halloween coming up.
Yeah.
So we'll have to have like a Halloween episode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Some ghost or cool we'll come up with on that one. But so what are the kids going as?
Thea's going to be a little princess, of course.
Oh, of course.
And then Thor changes his mind almost every other day, but I think he's focused on being a dragon.
I like it.
He'll probably make me be like a knight or something to fight against.
Yeah.
Because he likes to, we do like we're weird. We do themes. So we all dress up as something and I'm not ashamed. I'm not one of those weirdos.
No, you can't be.
If my kid wants me to dress up, I'll dress up and walk around town. I don't care.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of weird parents who are like, I'm not dressing up.
Yeah. When I was an undercover officer years and years ago, I had really long hair and earrings and all that kind of stuff. And my girls used to braid my hair and want to put makeup on me and stuff. And I was like one of the original transgenders.
Yeah. Everybody now is copying you, and that's why I don't like them.
Exactly. So no, you got to do what makes your children happy.
Yeah, exactly.
And even though Halloween is kind of glorifies spirits, ghouls, witches, warlocks, and demonic things, if you don't look at it that way and just enjoy getting candy and dressing up and having fun.
That's the key. And I get some people's hesitation with it, but at the same time, my kids aren't out there sacrificing black cats and worshiping the devil. They're dressing up as dragons to get candy and having a good time.
Yeah, to my knowledge, they haven't been drinking human blood yet.
Not yet. Not that I know of.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, not much going on in my life other than still doing construction.
Yeah, nonstop.
Nonstop.
I don't think you're not allowed to sleep anymore, right?
I don't think I've slept in months.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of electrical and drywall and stuff still to do, but
it's coming along though. It's looking good.
But I'm getting there. Yeah. And by Thanksgiving, when, all the kids come home to visit or Christmas, hopefully the house is going to be in order and it's going to be a whole new.
I mean, no one will appreciate it, but it'll be done.
No. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's get into the Flatwoods monster. The Flatwoods monster is also known by a few other names. He's called the Braxton County monster, the Phantom of Flatwoods, the Green Monster, and then, of course, a lot of the locals will refer to him as Braxy. And in fact, my understanding is if you go there and you go to, there's a museum that we'll talk about later, that they actually give you little stickers or something that say Braxy on them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we need to go
We got to get some stickers, yeah.
We've got to get stickers. A description of the Flatwoods monster, it varies dependent upon which witness you want to listen to, but it was generally described as about 10 feet tall and 4 feet wide. So, it's a pretty good size entity. Yeah. It had a round, blood red face and a large, pointed, hood-like shape around the face that resembled the ace of spades. It had two eye-like shapes on its face, which emitted this greenish orange light, and it had a dark black or like a dark green body. It had small claw-like hands and it appeared to be wearing some sort of a robotic suit. It's known to make hissing sounds, and it emits a pungent smelling mist that they called like this purple haze that had similar to like a sulfuric smell, but it was very noxious.
Yeah.
Other people described the head as being this round red head with a spade-shaped cowl behind it. So basically the same thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Some people said that it appeared to be around the head. Some people said it appeared to be behind the head. I think it's the only.
Those are one of those descriptors. It's
the bottom line is it's got a spade-shaped looking head,
exactly,
and a big red face.
See, that's the thing. Not to get into it. That's the thing that irritates me is people will see those discrepancies and go, "It's clearly made," and it's like
they made it up.
Come on, we're just talking about two different perspectives here. Doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right? Exactly. The two eyes that were described as portholes in the face were about the size of $50, and they glowed this green-orange, which that's what the original description was, so there's really no difference there. And the body was a metallic, armored structure lined with thick vertical pipes. That was also described as being like pleats in clothing or folds. I think the vertical pipes is the best description because then you get the concept of it being like conical or circular shaped. But if you can picture like curtains or drapes in a home that are pleated, that's kind of what they were trying to get at, was that it looked like it was almost like a dress or a uniform of some type that came up to the waist that had those big pleats or piping to it. Discrepancies also existed in the actual color of the body armor. While some claimed it to be black, some said it was green, and others said it was silver, but everybody agreed that it was kind of like a spacesuit of some kind.
Right.
There were also disagreements on its appendages. Some said it had toy-like arms, like maybe on a toy robot. Some said that it had claws at the end of its arms, while other people said it didn't have any arms at all. Which one? I don't know.
Right.
I think the original people that saw it probably gave the best description of it, and we'll get into the origin. So my assumption is that it did have arms of some kind, and then in further sightings that you're going to get into, it actually like damaged somebody's car with one of its hands. So it obviously had like a claw of some kind.
Exactly, yeah.
So even the size of this guy varied a little bit, some suggesting it was 10 feet tall, 4 feet wide. Others said, no, this thing had to be at least 17 feet tall. Well, that's a pretty good jump.
Right.
7 feet. I mean, again, it depends on how far away you were, what your perspective is, how tall you are.
Right.
And if you even have the ability to guesstimate something.
That's the
some
thing, too.
Some people are just horrible.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, like, have you ever been in a parking lot and you see somebody backing out?
Yeah.
And they keep stopping like they don't have enough room.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, you got like 15 feet, buddy. Come on, just get out of my way.
Yeah.
It's kind of, we're talking the same thing here. Like, maybe that person either has bad depth perception or they can't see good where they're at.
Which is clear because even like with my kids and stuff, some will drive closer to the right side of the road, some drive closer to the left, and it's depth perception. They don't know how far they are away from the line.
Right.
But the other thing is like, if you're standing in a room and you tell somebody, how far away is that wall?
Yeah.
You know, some people are like, oh, that's got to be 10 feet. And other people are like, it's 40. It's at least 40 feet. And it's like, God,
you're like, it's
idiot.
6 feet away.
Yeah,
come on. All of you guys aren't even close. Yeah.
So, perspective is everything.
Right.
But it's not a reason to discount a sighting of
exactly.
something. And everybody loves to say, oh, see, somebody said it was 10. Somebody said
nobody
17.
can agree, which shows it's fake.
It was not there at all. Well, I don't agree with that. I think people make mistakes. In the end here, everybody kind of compared the face of it to like that of a barn owl. And they just mean the face, like the red section that had the glowing eyes and stuff. They said it kind of had. So I'm picturing the little widow peak.
Yeah.
That, then goes into the circles. I think that's what they mean when they say it kind of looked like a barn owl, because barn owls don't have a big spade-shaped cowl behind them.
Right.
So they're only talking about the little red face itself. Now, the location of this entity, of whatever it was in the town of Flatwoods, which is in Braxton County, West Virginia. And West Virginia has a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, they had Mothman, and they've got, I mean, if you really get into the lores of West Virginia and the hills and whatnot of that area, there's a lot of creepy cryptid stuff. So it kind of makes sense that this would show up there as well.
Oh, absolutely.
This incident occurred on this guy. His name was G. Bailey Fisher, and he had a farm out there that was just outside of Flatwood, and there were like hills and whatnot all around. And that's where the incident initially occurred. As we get into this story, you'll see that this thing appeared in a few other areas, but the first reported sighting of it was on Mr. Fisher's farmland.
Right.
I read a lot of stuff that says people love to go there still because it's a lore that has never gone away. And so a lot of people will go to Flatwoods just to see where this creature was. But what I got to throw out there is this is private property, private land, somebody's farm. I don't know if the Fishers still own it. I didn't look into that.
Right.
If it was handed down or sold or whatnot. But if you do go to West Virginia to go see where this thing is, just understand that you're going to be trespassing on private property, and people might not like that.
Yeah.
So there's plenty to do regarding the Flatwoods monster in town that you can look into, if you're interested. But I wouldn't suggest going to the property itself.
Yeah, don't trespass. That's how you get shot.
Okay, so going into the origin of the Flatwoods monster, it's quite a story. On September 12th of 1952, at about 7:15 p.m., so it's just getting dark out there.
Yep.
3 boys, and they're young, one by the name of Edward May, his brother Freddie May, and their friend Tommy Heyer. They all lived in the town of Flatwoods, and they were out playing on the lawn of the Flatwoods Elementary School when they witnessed this bright object shooting across the sky. And from what I understand, it was like extremely bright. So it wasn't like a shooting star. It was something...
Seemed closer,
and a big ball of flame, kind of bright, kind of light. The object appeared to crash on the hillside of Mr. Fisher's farm. So these boys, being curious, they start running towards the direction of the crash, but they ended up stopping at the Mays boys' house, which was actually on the way to the crash site, to tell their mom, Kathleen, what they had seen. So Kathleen calls a National Guardsman that she knew, who lived close by, 17-year-old Eugene Lemon, and asked him if he would accompany them to this crash site. So he shows up. This is all occurring now within minutes, literally. And they all set out, along with the family dog named Richie, to investigate what the boys had seen. And along the way, they end up getting joined by another couple friends by the name of Neil Nunley and Ronnie Shaver. So from what I could gather, Eugene was the oldest boy there. So at 17. The other kids were younger. They could have been, anywhere ranging between like 9 and 15 years old. So they are all young. And a lot of people would say, well, see, it's just kids and they were hysterical. But yet kids sometimes make the best witnesses.
Because they're brutally honest.
They're brutally honest.
Yeah.
They see better than we do. I'm 65 years old. And
right.
When I'm looking at something and then my daughter, who's my youngest daughter, is 25, she'll be like, Dad, that's not what that is. Her perspective is better than mine now.
Right.
Visual, hearing, all that kind of stuff. She's always like, do you hear that noise? It's a funny squeaky noise. And I'm like, I don't hear it. I don't hear as well as I used to. But anyway, so if people say, well, these were a bunch of kids, so no wonder this thing's made up. I disagree with that.
Right.
I believe that kids can be great witnesses.
Yeah. Also, good move on the mom, too, to let them go check it out and not be like, no, you guys are staying in home. We're not doing that. No one's getting hurt today.
Exactly. So, kudos to Kathleen.
Yeah.
Well, while they're on their way out there, this dog, Richie, he runs ahead of them, out of sight, and they can hear him barking in the distance. But all of a sudden, the barking stops, and just moments later, he comes running back to them with his tail between his legs. Well, we've had this before, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think the Puckwudgie story, when the guy's walking his dog, and the dog, he's got his tail between his legs, and he's cowering.
Yep.
Dogs understand fear. They know I mean, some dogs are stupid and they'll go attack a grizzly or get in a scrap with a mountain lion and they're probably going to die. But a lot of dogs sense fear. And I think in this particular case, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
This poor dog saw something, smelled something, whatever the case, knew I'm out of here.
Yeah, not doing this today.
Throws the tail between his legs, whimpering, and runs back to his owners.
Yeah.
And so that in and of itself, to me, is evidence that there was something there that frightened an animal. So after traveling about a quarter of a mile, the group then reaches the top of the hill at the site where this alleged crash occurred, and they saw this large pulsating ball of fire about 50 feet away from them. They also saw and smelled this mist in the air that made their eyes and noses burn. So this kid Lemon, the National Guardsman, he noticed two small red lights to the left of their location and up fairly high. He's thinking that maybe it's a squirrel or a possum or a raccoon or something in a tree.
Right.
He swings his flashlight in that direction and kind of illuminates the area, and then the group witnesses this horrifying creature. A 10-foot tall entity with this head shaped like a spade, wearing what appeared to be a dark metal-colored dress. Its hands were twisted and clawed, and its eyes glowed this greenish-orange color. A strange, sickening mist hung in the air around it as it levitated off the ground. The creature hissed at them and then glided quickly toward them, changing direction suddenly and then heading off towards the light. And I'm not sure what light they're talking about. I think it was the original pulsating ball that, it was heading towards them and then it veered off.
Right.
But Lemon was so scared by it, he screams, he falls backwards, drops his flashlight, and just the fear alone from him startled everybody else.
Well, yeah, because they just called the older guy who's in the National Guard, and they're like, well, if he's scared, we should probably get out of here. Too.
So this causes the entire group to run away in utter panic. Well, they end up running home, and Kathleen immediately contacts the local sheriff and a news reporter. The reporter, his name was A. Lee Stewart, was the co-publisher of the Braxton County Democrat, and he conducted a number of interviews and then returned to the site with Lemon about an hour later that same night. So it wasn't like this was a lot of time had gone by.
That's pretty quick.
It's pretty quick. As soon as they got back, she made phone calls. This guy shows up, interviews the kids, kind of gets a little overall, of what is going on out there. And then they head out, and he goes out with the National Guardsman. Stewart said that when he got to the scene, there was a, quote, sickening, burnt, metallic odor still prevailing, end quote. They didn't see anything. The entity was gone, but he does recount the fact that there was still that lingering smell out there.
And how do you account for that?
It's out in the middle of nowhere, right, on a hillside and on some guy's property,
in West Virginia, yeah. It's not like we're in Chernobyl and it's like, it's leftover radiation. That makes sense.
Right. So early the next morning, Stewart visited the site of the encounter for a second time. And at this point, because now it's daylight, he discovers two tracks in the mud that he described as skid marks, as well as traces of this thick black liquid, or what he kind of said was a gummy deposit. And he immediately reported them as being possible signs of a saucer landing in that area. So UFO enthusiast groups subsequently attributed his findings as evidence of a saucer landing, which of course they would.
Right, yeah, of course.
And I would.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
You have this family goes out there, they're terrified. They see this horrific 10-foot tall, levitating, robotic creature that's hissing at them and spewing a purple haze at them that's burning their throats. And then he goes back out the next day and finds tracks all over the place and black gummy stuff that shouldn't be there. I would say the same thing.
To me, that's more evidence than like when you're watching one of those Finding Bigfoot shows and they see a broken twig and they're like, that's clearly a juvenile female because that's based on their characteristics. And it's like, come on, guy. That's a broken stick. Whereas here you have like tangible evidence.
Yeah. Well, and actually, which we're not going to get into very heavily, but this was investigated later, and it was found that the the tops of the trees out there were scorched and some of the limbs were broken, which could indicate that there was a crash of some kind out there. They did not get into that very much because they clearly don't want us to believe that this ever occurred.
Exactly.
And so everything was watered down, dumbed down, as we do, right? In every case, like the Roswell incident.
That's how it goes,
Pretty much everything we've always said, oh, that's not even real.
Yeah.
Now, the funny part, the irony of it is now all of a sudden the government wants to come out and tell us there's UFOs, there's aliens.
It's all part of the distraction.
It's all part of the distraction. I'm going to tell you right now, my belief is that our government and the demonic forces that run our world right now, the Prince of Darkness and all of its entities, are going to lay the stage here for after the rapture. And I know I'll lose a lot of people. They'll go, he's nuts. But after the rapture, if you're a Christian, you believe in the rapture, what other story would you be able to come up with as whether it's a government or just another person when millions of people are just disappear off the planet? What's the most feasible thing to say?
Right.
Aliens abducted them, clearly. How else would you account for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people disappearing and planes crashing? I mean, there's a million movies on this, right?
Yeah.
You know, all the Left Behind movies series, and where planes crash and taxis and stuff, you know, the driver's gone and people.
I love those movies, yeah.
And they crash and all the children are gone and people are panicking all over the place. So how do you settle that down? You got to have a reason.
Yeah. You slowly build up that.
And so now, for years, we've been saying there's no aliens. And now all of a sudden we're being told, well, my God, there's a mothership on its way here that's supposed to get here.
Yeah, of course.
As early as November, you know, and we don't, it's like, who do you believe?
Right. If not to get too much more into it, but if you are evil leading this stuff, you don't want people to think it was God.
Well, you can't.
Want people to think it's the opposite so that after the rapture, people don't turn to God.
Right.
You want them to turn to you.
Well, and biblically, that's exactly what it is.
Exactly.
Men will still turn their faces from God because there won't be any God on this earth. Bibles will be removed. The Antichrist is supposed to deceive everybody into believing that he is God.
Right.
And so you can't have believers left on earth. You have to give them an explanation as to why something happened other than what really happened.
Exactly. So it's all part of the cover-up.
Yeah, it's all part of the cover-up. And so to me, I find irony in that for hundreds of years, all these UFO incidents that people are saying is a conspiracy and the government's hiding it and all that kind of stuff. And now all of a sudden they want to tell us, oh yeah, they 100% exist. And
I mean,
they're on their way here right now.
They were trying to make people think that they were crazy.
Yeah, exactly. People have been committed over UFOs.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, and then again, you know, I believe that all this UFO stuff is just demonic anyway. I don't believe in little green men from other planets, but I'm also open enough to say that it's possible.
Sure.
So I'm not going to be an anti-UFO person. I've seen UFOs, but I still believe they were government projects and whatnot. But you can't say definitively that there are or are not aliens until that day happens, right?
Right.
When we actually see one or whatever. Well, in this case, these people saw one.
Yeah.
So maybe they exist, maybe they don't. I don't know. But anyway, moving on with the story, the sheriff, Robert Carr was his name, and his deputy, they also went out to the area and they searched for the crash site and the alien. And they were not able to find anything. And they actually said, quote, "We saw, heard, and smelled nothing." So Stewart, the reporter, he 100%, well, I shouldn't say 100%, but he believes that it occurred.
Right.
Okay. Because he was present right at the very beginning there. He also saw the fear and the hysteria of the people that he believed was legitimate. The sheriff, of course, shows up after the fact, didn't go out right away, doesn't smell anything, and so he just chalks them up as lunatics.
Right.
Moving on here, on September 15th of 1952, a few days after the initial sighting, the Hinton Daily News actually published an article stating that when Stewart received that first report from Kathleen, he had organized an armed posse at the scene with his shotgun in tow. And upon his arrival, he shared, quote, "The odor was still there. It was sort of warm and sickening. And there were two places about 6 to 8 feet in diameter where the brush was trampled down. I hate to say I believe it, but I hate to say I don't believe it either. Those people were scared, badly scared, the most scared I've ever seen, and people don't make up that kind of story that quickly, and I sure smelled something, end quote. So another little note here that I thought was kind of funny was there's this other kid named John Gibson who was a high school freshman at the time. He says, hey, I knew all those people, and I heard the story. And he says, not only did their dog come back, with its tail between its legs, terrified, but one of the boys out there, and he didn't name which one, because one of the boys peed his pants. He was so scared, he cut loose in his own britches.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny. But it also is kind of evidence that something clearly occurred.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're making something up, you don't piss yourself, right? I mean, I hope not.
Unless you're that great of an actor. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good actor.
I guess you could cut loose to make it look legit, but it's...
Yeah, I'm not buying that.
Unreasonable to think that.
Especially, we're talking high school boy. You're not going to live that down. Everybody knows you peed your pants.
Right. Yeah. And the only way you could face anybody is to say, well, because I was standing in front of a 10-foot tall alien that was hissing and spewing noxious gases at me.
And some people might not know this, but back in my day, and I know back in your day, people got bullied.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we weren't.
It's way worse than it is now because they care about bullies and they get called in. Back in our day, it was crazy.
You either got picked on or you had a fist fight in the yard.
Yeah, exactly. So going on, some of the members of the initial group suffered from throat irritation, vomiting, and nausea, which persisted for days afterwards. This encounter actually made local and national news, creating widespread panic. It also prompted a U.S. Air Force UFO inquiry. Project Blue Book was the code name for the systematic study of unidentified flying objects by the United States Air Force from March of 52 until its termination on December 17th, 1969. And at the end of the podcast, we're going to talk about that Project Blue Book.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to other sightings, why don't you jump into that?
Yeah. So after the Flatwood monster incident, investigators associated with Civilian Saucer Investigations, which is a pretty cool name.
Yeah, exactly.
Attained a number of accounts from witnesses who claimed to have experienced similar or related phenomena. So a mother and her 21-year-old daughter claimed to have come face to face with a strange creature a week prior to the September 12th incident. They described it as having a shiny body with a spade-shaped cowl around its red, round head.
So clearly it's the same one.
Same thing, yeah. Because, I mean, what could that be?
What is that?
It's not like I saw a brown bear. No, it was actually you saw a black bear.
Right.
What out there is
has a spade-shaped cowl around a red face.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing I'm aware of in nature kind of meets that description.
So on top of that, it had glowing green orangish eyes that were described as portholes the size of $50. Again, what?
Yeah, that matches the, subsequent sighting, but the first reported sighting.
Right, exactly.
Not to be confusing there, but this supposedly happened before the incident of the origin story.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing.
Same description. The sickening metallic odor the creature had admitted was so intoxicating that the woman's daughter had been admitted to the hospital, where she spent a total of 3 weeks trying to regain her health.
Yeah, so she had some kind of respiratory issue over that gas that they smelled.
Yeah, whatever it's kicking off there.
Crazy.
So another sighting of a creature similar in description to the Flatwoods monster was reported by Miss Audra Harper not long before the sighting on Fisher's farm. Harper claims to have seen the monster while walking through the woods near her home. She lived near the town of Heaters, which is about 5 miles north of Flatwood. So we're talking, that's close enough.
Close enough.
Harper and her friend were walking to a nearby store, and they were taking a shortcut through the forest instead of walking the road. About a half mile into their trip, they noticed a ball of fire on one of the hills that they were passing. Harper dismissed it, assuming that one of her neighbors was, quote, fox chasing, end quote. When she looked back, she saw that the fire had vanished, and in its place stood a tall, dark silhouette of a man-shaped figure. Terrified, Harper and her friend ran away.
So, taking these stories into account, both of these incidents occurred before the origin story.
Right.
Because that was the first reported story.
Exactly.
These people are reporting after.
We're talking
when they're being interviewed.
This is a clear-cut case of, I don't want to look like a nut.
Yes.
So I'm not going to say anything.
I said nothing, right.
And then somebody said, well, I saw it. And they go, okay, well, now that you mentioned it.
Yeah. So, but here's part of my issue with this. If this was like an alien crash, the crash occurred on September 12th.
Right.
So what these two women saw prior to September 12th clearly was not a crash.
Right.
This alien was in the area. It matches the same description, which then would bring me to the conclusion that what the boy saw wasn't an actual crash.
It just was the creature.
But probably another landing.
Maybe, yeah.
Or the landing had already occurred. Well, it couldn't have occurred because they saw it streak across the sky on the 12th. But
rescue mission.
But you got two other women that saw the same basic thing. And then the second story there with Mrs. Harper, she saw the ball of fire burning on the hill.
Right.
Which would indicate to me that if that was prior to September 12th, that ball of fire probably wasn't burning for an entire week up there, or it would have been noticed by the farmer.
Exactly.
So these have to be landings, not crashes.
Right.
Right? I mean, would you agree with that?
I would have to say so, yeah.
So if this little guy has made an appearance 2 times before the September 12th incident, then he's landing up there and checking stuff out on
then taking off
on separate occasions and then taking off, which leaves no clear-cut evidence behind. Or if you didn't see him land and he took off, you wouldn't even know he was there.
You would just think you had some couple tracks in the ground that you wouldn't even, you probably wouldn't even notice it.
You wouldn't notice.
You would just say, oh, you go on your day.
Except for Stewart, who saw the tracks and then that gummy, oily, black substance. So I don't know. That it's weird.
It's weird, yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I like that because that makes sense. Because what else could it be?
Yeah.
You know, because you could say,
to me, it rules out that it was a crash.
Yeah. Because you could say maybe one of these gals saw a crash and then the other guy saw a landing. Because I would assume that if one was here and another one was doing like a rescue mission, so to speak, I would assume they both didn't just crash.
Right.
It's got to be a landing.
Especially in the same area constantly.
And leave behind no debris of any kind if you're crashing.
Something doesn't make sense there.
Yeah. You just fixed it in an hour and took off.
I think they're landings, not crashes. Yeah.
So the CSI investigators also gathered a statement from the mother of G. Bailey Fisher, in which she said that at the approximate time of the crash, her house had been violently shaken and her radio had cut out for about 45 minutes.
Yeah. To see, we've had this multiple times too. We've talked about it in at least 2 episodes.
Bat Squatch
where
and others, yes.
They've lost, it's like an EMP.
Right.
Which these, whether they're demonic, whether they're alien, whatever it is, that they're able to shut down electronic devices.
Whether on purpose or just their presence alone.
Yeah. And so I don't know what this lady's name was. It's the mother of Mr. Fisher, who was the farmer where the crash occurred. If she's claiming that the house shook and she lost her electronic stuff, certainly indicates that there was presence of something.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was an earthquake and a power line went down. I don't know. But you have to almost buy into the fact that people saw it. Multiple people saw it on different days.
Right.
And then the woman who lives on the property where it occurred, her house is violently shaken. Something had to have happened out there.
Exactly.
So
what it was, I don't know, but something happened.
Yeah, something happened. So anyway, moving on.
The director of the local board of education claimed to have seen a flying saucer taking off at 6:30 in the morning of September 13th, which was the morning after the creature was sighted.
Yeah.
So,
and this guy's got to be somewhat credible, right? He's the director of the Board of Education.
Now, if you said the director of some Board of Education present day, I might have said, well, that guy's probably off his rocker.
He's a whack job.
Yeah. But back then, I would assume that he's, a reputable guy, a normal person.
Right. And I don't know, man. You almost have to believe this happened.
What I can't with the other stuff, we can kind of pinpoint it, at least what we believe. This one's weird, though.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of this one.
I don't either.
Except that it's alien.
Something had to have happened.
Right.
Too many people saw it. Too many people saw a spacecraft. Too many people saw what appeared to be a crash. Evidence left behind.
And this creature.
An alien seen by multiple people on different days.
Giving the same basic description.
It has to be real.
Yep, 100%. Now, on September 13th of 1952, just one day after the Flatwoods sighting, George Snitowski, along with his wife Edith and their 18-month-old son, were traveling along Route 4 between the towns of Frametown and Sutton, which is about 17 miles south of Flatwoods. They lived in Queens, New York, and were returning from visiting family in Cincinnati. About 8 p.m., their car suddenly stopped, and the engine shut down.
Boom, bat squatch again.
There we go. Yeah, exactly. George made several attempts to restart the car and got out to check under the hood, but he couldn't figure out what the problem was because it's all electrical.
It's right.
So he noticed that the air was filled with a foul odor, almost like sulfur, and the smell got stronger, so George got back into the car and rolled up the windows. The closest town to them, Frametown, was about a 12-mile walk. And George didn't want to leave his wife and baby alone, rightfully so he decided to stay put and wait for a car to come by. George saw a bright light coming from a wooded area nearby. The area had a hazy purplish tint to it. George opened the window to get a better look, and the haze flooded into the car, making them gag.
And so...
Think
about that. You're out on a roadway and here comes the purple mist.
Right.
That's not normal.
Right.
We're not, well, when we get into the explanation section, it just angers me.
Yeah.
But I'll wait till we get there.
Right. Yeah.
But there's no explanation to a purple mist that smells like sulfur.
That's making you gag.
That's making you sick out in the middle of
nowhere.
I mean, come on, you're in the middle of, like forest land or hillsides of West Virginia. It's not like, well, it could have been a meth factory, I guess, but back in 52, didn't make sense. That wasn't a thing.
Right.
Back then, they had stills and whatnot, I suppose, but
with a purple haze.
But it wouldn't be purple. It wouldn't smell like sulfur.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Coming from the area where a bright light is.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we talking about?
We're talking about aliens.
Exactly.
That's what we're talking about.
Though the stench was sickening, George got out of his car and followed the light source. The ground sloped downward off the road towards the woods, and George could see a large sphere-shaped object behind the trees, which was about 200 to 300 feet away. Now the glowing object seemed to be floating, and the closer he got to it, the heat and the stench increased dramatically. He also experienced what felt like small electrical shocks or vibrations.
Okay, now this is the spacecraft.
Yes.
So he sees this spherical object hovering off the ground.
Right.
Bright light. And then he starts feeling this electronic presence in the air. I can only imagine what you'd have been terrified.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, this is like Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Because if you're by yourself, you'd still be terrified. But now you got a 18-month-old and your wife to worry about.
Right.
Who are back in the car that you just left to go check out what's going on.
Right. And I picture that scene of Richard Dreyfuss driving down the road by the power lines. His car shuts down. And the bright lights come. And when they leave, everything comes back on. That's what this guy experienced, basically. His car shuts down. You can feel the electricity, basically, in the air. You smell something. You see a bright light. And then he spots an actual craft hovering off the ground.
I would have liked to known approximately how big he thought it was.
Yeah. And being 200 to 300 feet away, you might lose some perspective.
Right.
And it's a whole football field away.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know that you could give an account.
It'd be tough,
of exactly how big it was. But I'm sure it was obviously big enough that when you're that far away, 3/4 to a football field away, and you can see it hovering
exactly.
It's got to be a pretty good sized craft.
And the electrical shocks, vibrations, that just lends credibility to their vehicle shutting down and other EMP related things with the ladies' radio and all that stuff.
Yeah, sending out some kind of either an electrical wave or a frequency or something that's interfering with electronics.
Right. Now, George became severely nauseous and began vomiting. He turns around and begins stumbling back to his car. And before reaching his car, he leaned against a tree to catch his breath. Just then, he hears his wife screaming in horror, which I can't even imagine.
No.
If you're already having trouble walking and now you hear your wife screaming.
Yeah. Can't even catch her own breath from the smell.
Right. He turned around and saw that a strange creature was behind him. Off to the right of the road and illuminated by the glowing sphere was a humanoid creature about 8 to 9 feet tall. It had what appeared to be a bloated reptilian upper body and a solid metallic lower half.
So it's Lizard Man in a dress.
In a dress, yeah, in a metal dress.
Right.
George ran and jumped in the car, pushed his wife and baby onto the floorboard, and threw himself on top of them. He armed himself with a large knife from the glove compartment. The creature approached the car and touched the hood with a forked, claw-like hand. It then walked away and disappeared into the woods.
So can you imagine how terrifying that would be?
Yeah.
You got your wife and your baby
Yeah.
in the car, trapped. It won't start. You can't leave. It's nighttime. You're out on a lonely stretch of road, nobody around.
Right.
And this thing walks over to your car and scratches your hood up with a big claw.
Right.
Looks like a lizard. That's got to be just
Yeah.
literally the thing nightmares are made of. This guy probably didn't sleep for 10 years after this.
Oh, there's no way.
Yeah.
And all he's got is a knife.
A knife.
From the glove box.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at least I would have been packing heat, but
Yep.
even if it's a false sense of security and you're shooting an alien and it does nothing to it because of whatever,
Yeah.
it would still kind of make you feel a little bit better.
Maybe.
To be able to dump rounds into it.
At least you're going down fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, a knife, it's
too close for comfort.
It's too close for comfort, especially with a 10-foot tall creature. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So after a few minutes, George noticed the sphere slowly rise, stopping a few times on its ascent. And at around 3,000 feet, it swung back and forth like a pendulum and then shot out of sight. The smell in the fog started to dissipate, and he was able to get the car started.
So as soon as the thing leaves, everything's good.
Boom. So it's clearly, whether intentional or it's just its power is shutting down electronics around it.
Yeah.
So they drove to Sutton and made a stop at a local truck stop / diner before finding a hotel for the night. As they were leaving the next morning, they noticed the car had a V-shaped singed into the paint down to the primer where the creature had touched their car.
So technically it wasn't even like a scratch. It was more like a burn.
Yeah.
That's even more frightening.
Yeah.
Because this thing's got some type of, well, he said it was so hot that he had to turn around and run back.
Right.
But that was from the craft. But if the creature touches his hood and it singes it all the way through the paint down to the primer, that's pretty terrifying too.
Yeah, it melts you.
Yeah, Lizard Man, remember when Lizard Man chased that kid's car, he scratched the crap out of the car.
Right, which is horrifying enough.
Ripped the mirrors off and whatnot, and was clinging on to the, the cowl of where like the windshield was.
Right.
And so you can kind of picture that, the big lizard claws and that thing holding on. But this thing didn't scratch it.
It just barely touched it and burned it. Yeah.
So that's frightening.
So the Snatowskis decided to keep quiet about the incident.
Naturally.
Of course, because you sound crazy.
Yep.
However, several years later, George decided to tell his story to Paul Lieb, president of the Flying Saucer Research Institute. And Paul wrote a story about the incident, which was published in the July 1955 edition of Mail magazine. This incident was dubbed the Frametown Monster, but it was believed to be the same creature from Flatwoods. It had the same pipe-lined metallic armor from the waist down, but from the waist up, it was a reptilian humanoid. Many people thought that the creature may have removed the cowl or the upper portion of its spacesuit, exposing its reptilian face.
Now, see, that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Everybody said, or a lot of people said that it had arms with like claw-like things in the original description.
Right.
The cowl was even described at one point as they thought it was like a spacesuit. It was like armored helmet thing that came on over him. The red face, the glowing eyes could have been part of like a space helmet.
Right.
And so people jumped to the conclusion that since it had the same body armor from the waist down, but now it has this reptilian skin-like thing, it kind of reminds me of Predator as an example.
Yeah.
Cool looking thing, but remember when it snaps the little tubes off and the steam comes out and then it removes the metallic helmet. Now it's this reptilian
with the
frightening looking
jaw
creature.
unhinging. And yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of what I picture here.
Yeah.
And if it was an alien that was in a suit, that spade-shaped cowl that they say was surrounded or was behind this red-ish round face could have literally been like a helmet that it removed. And if it removed it, it could be a reptilian-looking creature. And now, from the waist up, you've got this lizard thing, but he's wearing a partial spacesuit.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. I know a lot of people think, oh, you guys are nuts. But I mean, it does make sense.
Right.
They're in the same area. You got the same ball of fire glowing over there on the hillside. He goes over to check it out. You got the same mist.
Purple
the same
haze.
stench.
Yep. The same feeling.
The same feeling.
Yep.
You have this thing basically floating.
Electronics shutting down.
Towards him. Electronics shutting down. The only difference in the description is this thing wasn't wearing a spade-shaped cowl.
Right.
Maybe it felt comfortable enough to remove part of its armor. I mean, it's out in the middle of nowhere. It probably didn't expect the Snutowskis to come by either.
Exactly.
Right? But it went over to kind of check them out.
Well, it saw him walking towards its stuff, so it's like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I got to defend myself.
I'm going to come over and check out your stuff.
Right.
Leave a little mark on your car to remind you of the
scare
incident.
The hell out of you for years to come.
I would, again, this is like 1952.
Right.
I would have loved to have seen like pictures of this.
Oh, gosh, yes.
I mean, I'm sure cameras weren't as good as they are today. You couldn't like pull out a cell phone and snap a picture of it and put it up on the internet. None of that existed. And I'm sure he didn't have a camera in the car with him at the time, with the big flash bulb and all stuff of the 50s. But man, wouldn't it be awesome if there was some evidence of that?
Yes.
But we're not going to get it.
No.
Just got to go by George's account of the incident.
Right, because
I also did not look up the 1955 article in Mail Magazine. I'd kind of like to read that article now.
Going to have to now.
Going to have to go back and look at that. I did read the newspaper article from the Hinton Daily News. The picture of that article was published, and it gives the same account of the story that we just gave, obviously. But it would have been kind of fun to see George's story in print.
Yeah.
Not just based on the story being told, but the actual article where they quote this man.
Right.
But I didn't look that up, so that's something I got to check out.
Yeah, so the monster has not been seen since the original incidents in 1952 there. So that's all we got for sightings.
So that's it.
Which, I mean, they're credible sightings.
What do we have here? We got George, we got Mrs. Harper, we've got the unknown lady with her daughter, and we have the 7 people that originally reported the incident.
And then we have Stewart. He didn't see it, but he had a little bit of this aftermath of it.
Right.
Right.
So what is that? 8, 9, 10. That's 11 people that, and you got to count his wife too, 12. So she saw. So that's 12 people over the course of about a week that saw the same basic thing.
Yeah.
And again, it's 1952. There probably weren't as many prankster type things as you have now. Like, people are constantly posting grainy pictures of, Bigfoot, and you can clearly see that it's some guy in a suit.
Right.
So you got a whole bunch of hoaxsters out there nowadays. But in 52, do you really think these people were like driving down the road and decided, hey, let's just make up a story that we came across an alien?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not buying that.
Or do you think that there was a prankster out there who somehow made a ball float in the air with a light coming through it, and then they made this suit, and they also made this purple haze that made people feel nauseous?
And he was able to move from Flatwoods to Frametown,
burning people's
cars and all that.
Just for the prank back in the 50s.
See, again, when we get into, and we're moving into explanations right now, but when we talk about this, it angers me that people just completely dismiss what other people have seen.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to move into the explanation now. One explanation is that it was an actual crash or a landing of an extraterrestrial being, and that creature that was seen by witnesses was something not of this world.
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest explanation. I know a lot of people would say, no, there has to be something else. But to me, based on what we have, based on the evidence of the scene, based on the witness accounts, the easiest explanation is something was there that landed or crashed and was levitating around, scaring the bejeebits out of these people.
Right.
To me, that's the most plausible explanation. Another explanation is that it was a government experiment that was covered up. Well, as far as like a craft goes, I would believe that. Yeah. I have no problem believing that our government covers up things.
Right.
I know that they do from personal experience. The crash in the Kern Canyon was a test flight. They covered that up.
Right.
You know, they didn't want people to know. They rushed up there. They shut down the whole canyon. It was a top secret thing. They should cover it up. You know, I'm not even saying that the government's wrong by doing it. We don't want our enemies to know what we have.
Right, exactly.
So we're not going to publicize it, put it in the paper and talk about, you know, all the equipment we've got.
I always hate when people get bent out of shape about that, where they're like, the people need to know. I don't care if the people need to know. The enemy doesn't need to know.
Right. And the enemy is amongst us.
Right. So
you got so many people that hate America, that live in America, that all they got to do is take a newspaper, and when the government says, oh, we did this and that, and this is the new equipment that we've just come out with.
Right.
What do you think they're going to do with that information? They're going to contact their own countries and let them know what's going on. So I don't have a problem with government, quote unquote, cover-ups, because it's in the interest of national security. But in this particular case, I don't think that's what this was.
Right.
Because I really doubt that we had a government employee in a spacesuit, you know, with a reptilian face hovering above the ground, hissing at people and emitting a gas.
Right.
So I rule that one out. Now, according to Mr. Stewart, the reporter that went out, he's leaning toward the fact that the Flatwood monster was actually real. He recounts the odor, the tracks, the residue he found as being evidence of its presence. It was later learned that the tracks that Stewart located were likely made by a local boy by the name of Max Lockhart, who admitted that he had actually driven around the site in his Chevy truck, hoping to see something just hours prior to Stewart's discovery of that stuff the following day.
Right.
So, as you'll recall, Stewart didn't see anything the night he went out the following day. Well, they found out that this kid actually heard about the story, so he went up there and drove around looking for evidence himself.
I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah. Now, the paranormal investigators, though, that looked into this, they concluded that those tracks and the residue and the bits of rubbery substance that Stewart found was, in fact, left by a creature and not by a truck. So you have government telling you those are tire tracks from a Chevy. You have paranormal investigators saying, no, they weren't. Those were like skid marks, and those were not car tracks.
Yeah, this isn't power steering fluid. This is something else.
Right.
Yeah.
So take that with a grain of salt, I guess. You know, you have paranormal investigators that want to believe that aliens exist. You have government who's claiming that they don't. One is always going to say it wasn't that. It was this. The other one that wants it to be that is going to say clearly it was that. So it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
When those investigators get out there, it's hard to say what they actually saw and how they came to the conclusions they came to. All we can see, because it was 1952, all we can see is what was written historically as what their finding was. But we don't get to actually see it.
Exactly.
Because I'd like to make up my own mind on those tracks. I've done a million investigations, and tire tracks often lead to a suspect. I'd like to see those so that I could say those are tire tracks, or those aren't tire tracks.
Yeah, it's clear those aren't.
Yeah,
exactly.
But we don't get to see it, so I can't really weigh in on that. But now the West Virginia State Police, they had other thoughts, like the sheriff and the deputy who said there was nothing out there. We didn't smell nothing. So you got the police, and it's what I came up with on that is they just, quote, laughed off the reports as hysteria, end quote. They claimed that this so-called monster had grown from 7 to 17 feet in just 24 hours. And so, in their opinion, it invalidated the entire event. And I get that. You know, you got one guy saying it was a 7-footer, you know, and then the next guy, it's 17.
Right.
At least 17 feet. You start discounting people's statements. And it's wrong to do that. Now I can look at that and say, no, it's always wrong to do that because perspective is perspective.
Right.
You might not have the same outlook that I have on something, and you describe it completely different. But back then, even those police officers said, these people are psychotic. They're a bunch of nuts. Now, here's the crazy part, though. The police said that the strange mist that the group had claimed that made them sick hours on end was nothing more than an exposure to mustard gas.
So mustard gas is just out on this guy's farm?
So that's my whole thing here. Come on. We weren't in the midst of war. This was during the Cold War era in 1952. We just got out of Korea.
Right.
And this was during the days when the Russians were trying to come up with nuclear weapons. Between the 50s and 60s, you had the Russian arms race, you had the Cuban Missile Crisis, you had all this stuff. People were panicked. People were always in the idea that we were going to be bombed by Russia, or something bad was going to happen, that gases were coming in and we were all going to die from some nerve agent or whatever. And there was hysteria across the country during the Cold War era. But this is West Virginia on a farm.
Right.
What would the presence of mustard gas be there for?
Exactly.
There was no ground war. There was nothing going on. So for the police to even say that this was a sign of exposure to mustard gas that's a stretch.
Right.
And I don't think I've never smelled mustard gas. So I don't think you want to.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it smells like sulfur either. And I don't think it's a purple mist.
Right.
But
I guess we could be wrong on that one.
We could be. We'd have to contact Saddam Hussein, I think, who's probably in hell right now, and ask him, what kind of gases he used on the Kurds and what it smelled like and looks like.
Yeah.
Because I really don't honestly know. But what I can say is that these people were not exposed to mustard gas out there.
No.
That's just crazy. So the U.S. Air Force, they doubted it too. The Project Blue Book that we talked about earlier, they actually initiated that, and it wasn't because of this incident, but it was right around this incident, that they decided they needed to go out and investigate claims of UFO sightings all over the country. And they had thousands of cases. I was going to write it down, how many. It's way up. It was like 11,000 or something cases of reported UFOs throughout the U.S., all of which were either non-conclusive or they ruled it out as being something else. I don't believe there was ever one case of, yep, it was a UFO and we had it tracked on our radar or whatever. It was always a reason why it wasn't, and you're wrong.
Yeah, they wouldn't tell us anyway.
No. But this Project Blue Book apparently did actually investigate this sighting, and they concluded that the bright meteors had streaked across the eastern U.S. at dusk that night, and it was seen by many people in Baltimore, among other places. And the monster with the claw-like arms was just an owl.
Yeah, the 7-foot tall owls.
The 7-foot tall owl. Now, they're going to say, of course, that, well, because it was up in a tree, so it seemed like it was taller.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So anyway, the Air Force comes back and says, nope, it wasn't a UFO, it was a meteor and an owl. Well, years later, a guy by the name of Joe Nickel, he worked for the Committee of Skeptical Inquiry, which still exists today. It used to have a much longer name, but they brought it down to the CSI. And he agreed with the Air Force's Project Blue Book investigation. He ended up concluding that the bright light in the sky reported by the witnesses on September 12th was most likely a meteor, that the pulsating red lights that they saw was an aircraft navigation or hazard beacon, and that the creature described by witnesses closely resembled an owl. So Nichols suggested that the witnesses' perceptions were distorted by basically hysteria.
That's why people don't report stuff right here.
Exactly.
They get written off as being,
you
were overreacting.
Yep. Your anxiety was off the charts that night. So he ends up saying that the night of September 12th, a meteor had been observed across 3 states, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. The flashing red aircraft beacons were also visible from the area of the sightings, which could account for the description of a pulsating red light and a red tint on the face of a supposed monster. But Nichols said that the shape, the movement, and the sounds reported by the witnesses were consistent with the silhouette, the flight pattern, and the call of a startled barn owl that was perched in a tree.
No.
Yeah.
Not buying it.
And so they got a little more into depth on this, and they said that not only was it just an owl up in a tree that was being illuminated by aircraft beacons with the red lights, but that the metallic suit or the dark green suit was the foliage from the trees underneath it. And as it flew towards them, it appeared to be hovering. And then, of course, they were all frightened and startled and fell and ran and did whatever. And the bird clearly just flew off, and that's why it all disappeared. What they're not explaining is what about the big ball of fire that was burning on the hillside,
right,
that they went to go see, and that Mrs. Harper saw, and the Snatowskis that saw the actual craft hovering. All of that was discounted. Nope. What you saw was a meteor falling through the sky and an owl. But it doesn't account for the singed treetops. It doesn't account for the broken branches. It doesn't account for the witnesses actually seeing the landing or the crash. It doesn't account for the director of the Board of Education who saw an alien craft lifting off the ground and leaving the morning after the sighting. None of that stuff was addressed.
And the owl's wearing metallic armor and also reptilian now?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that was because you were either affected by the mustard gas was out there, or you were so hysterical that you just
imagined all of it.
Mass hallucination.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm not buying any of that.
No, that's ridiculous.
So the U.S. Air Force either didn't do a proper investigation or they just covered something up. Joe Nichols, who, and I might add, this investigation was in the year 2000. This is 48 years later that Joe Nichols goes out to do this investigation. There's no evidence left.
No.
There's probably no witnesses.
I was going to say, probably didn't talk to a single person from that.
Yeah, so all he did probably was go over the Project Blue Book's findings and concurred with it.
Maybe he talked to the 18-month-old.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you saw when you were 18 months old? And as your dad was
gagging and vomiting.
And laying over you guys to protect you from the owl. It was just an owl, right?
Yeah, it was an owl flying around that singed the hood.
Clearly you were overreacting.
Yeah. So when you get into this story, the fact that everybody said that these people were just crazy, it really irritates me.
Yeah, same.
The police, the sheriff, the Air Force, the CSI, all coming up with, they smelled mustard gas, they saw an owl, and, I'd put money on it that if we went out to Mr. Fisher's farm, that there's no beacons flashing red light on an owl's face somewhere in a tree.
Yeah.
I'm not buying that at all. Meteor zooming across the sky, maybe. If that meteor struck the earth on his farm, which would account for the violent shaking of the house.
Right.
The potential disruption of radio wave, right? Because I'm sure in 52, she's on an AM radio.
Right.
So that aerial modulation with a meteor coming over her house could have disrupted radio signal. But they're not even saying that. I mean, if they said, hey, there was a meteor struck the earth over there, it was about the size of a VW.
Yeah.
When you watch television shows, a meteor the size of a car that hits the earth is supposed to be like a nuclear explosion, right?
Right.
They're always showing a meteor coming down. It hits the earth and it makes a crater, 100 feet wide and causes severe damage.
Right.
Well, there was no report of that. So it wasn't a meteor that came down on Bailey's property. It had to be a craft of some kind.
Right. Yeah, because the cops are going out and the next day and saying, I don't see anything out
there ain't nothing there.
There's nothing.
Didn't smell nothing either. Okay.
Even if it was like a 10-foot crater, let's just say, for giggles, it would still be there the next day.
Something would be there.
It's not like Bailey ran out there and was like, well, I got to get my farm fixed now.
So if the trees have singed tops, broken branches, then what hit?
Right.
But there was nothing there, and there's no crater. there's no evidence left behind of a meteor hitting the Earth. But if a UFO came down, it could have singed the tops of trees. It could have broken some branches and hovered above the Earth, not leaving a crater. And then that would be more along the lines of what these people saw.
Exactly.
And then as it takes off the following morning after the sighting, which it was seen taking off by a guy, there wouldn't be any evidence left behind other than possibly that oily black substance that was left on the ground and some skid marks.
Right.
So I don't know, man. You can chalk this one up to either these 12 people were absolutely, completely and totally insane, and we're not getting all of the story from the Air Force and from this committee of skeptical inquiry, and they had more that would suggest what they're offering, or it was an alien. It landed here. It hovered around. It damaged someone's car. It emitted some kind of horrific gas. People were sick for days over it, and that actually occurred, and we're covering it up.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all. That's all there is. There is no other explanation to this. I'm not buying that nothing happened and they saw an owl.
Right.
I'm just not buying that. So the Flatwoods monster, in my opinion, probably happened. I think it was real.
I just don't know what it was.
What it was, I can't even begin to speculate.
Right.
But I don't believe these people are crazy. And I don't believe that there was a thorough investigation actually done. Aside from that reporter, he interviewed everybody. He believed everybody. He saw the fear. He went there. He smelled the stuff. Is he in that too? I don't think so.
Right.
I think he reported what he saw. And everybody else just chalks everybody up as being crazy, and they saw an owl and
it's easier to do that.
They ran away from it.
Yeah.
So,
especially when you're trying to cover something up.
Yeah. Not buying it.
Yeah.
Not buying it for a second. Flatwoods monster is real.
100%.
He hasn't come back to at least that area. I don't know that there's ever been any sightings. They've done some drawings of it. There's a famous drawing of it,
yeah.
You know, and you can look it up and check this thing out. It's a weird looking, creepy thing. And if you can somehow say that what they saw is an owl, then I really need to be able to see an owl that looks like that.
I've seen a lot of owls.
I have owls on the top of my barn all the time.
Right.
And guess what? They're barn owls. They do have the widow peak, the big eyes, big beak. I know they've got big talons, which they could have said, oh, those were the claws they saw.
That burned into the car.
But they're not 10 feet tall. Yeah. They're not 10 feet tall. They don't wear metal outfits.
Not that I know of. I've never seen any with metal outfits.
I haven't either.
I guess there could be some hidden in the woods we don't know about.
You never know.
Yeah.
But if someone can show me a picture of an owl that looks even reasonably close to the Flatwoods monster, then I will change my opinion. But until then, that thing is an alien.
Yep.
Or an entity of some form, and it was here. Now, moving into popularity, you want to cover some of that?
Yeah, so officials in Flatwoods erected a welcome sign which designated the town as, quote, home of the green monster.
I love that.
Love that too. Play it up. I like that stuff.
That is the way it should be. If you had a cryptid in your neighborhood or in your town,
should be celebrating it.
It should be celebrated.
Yeah. There's nothing else to it but that.
I love like the town that has the lizard man.
And they have
statues and the festivals and all that kind of stuff. That's what makes life fun.
Right. Not the people who are on skeptical committees saying that people are liars.
Yeah.
That doesn't make anything fun.
No.
You're just a jerk. And so we were talking about this place before we started up.
Yeah,
so
we got to go.
We got to go.
Yeah.
So there's an ice cream shop called The Spot that opened in Flatwoods, and it offers a photo op with a painted iteration of the monster.
I like it.
I like it too.
I mean, what's better than getting an ice cream and a picture with an alien?
And then some of your specials should be named, hey, you want the Braxy? Here it is.
Oh, yeah, here's the Braxy, or your pistachio ice cream would probably be called the Green Monster.
Exactly.
Things like that. That'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, we got to go to that.
And the town of Sutton has the Flatwoods Monster Museum, which is located on Main Street, which is dedicated to the legend, of course. And its displays include one-of-a-kind collections and artifacts, historic items, memorabilia, books, and more things, souvenirs like shirts, stickers, shot glasses, lanterns, all the typical stuff that you have at a gift shop.
And you got to love that. And, from what I understand, admission to that little museum is free.
which is perfect.
You got to love that. A lot of places charge you, $15 to go in and look at something.
And I'd definitely be getting some shirts and stickers and stuff. Magnets for the fridge, something.
I need a Braxy sticker right now.
And a t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, if you want to go, they're closed on Mondays, but they're open 9 to 5, Tuesday through Friday. So you can check that out. Now, the Braxton County Convention and Visitors Bureau, they actually built a series of 5 tall chairs in the shape of the monster to serve as landmarks and visitor attractions.
You got to go sit in it and get your picture taken.
You know what? We have to go to West Virginia is the bottom line. Flatwoods has celebrated its 50th anniversary with a community festival in 2002, and they now have an annual convention held in Flatwoods.
Got to go to that.
I love it.
So we got to visit when they're doing that so we can see all the gift shops, the ice cream place, and then go to the convention.
Yeah. And then we'll go check out like Mothman and all that kind of stuff while we're in.
It might as well. You're right there.
Yeah.
In television, the second episode of the 2019 History Channel series Project Blue Book is based on the Flatwoods incident. And on the show Mountain Monsters.
One of our favorite horrifying B-rated crappy shows.
Love it. Love it. On Destination America, the team goes to Braxton County, West Virginia to investigate a similar cryptid, the Shadow Creature. And this could possibly be a reptilian version of the Flatwood monster, only without the skirt-like structure around its waist, so no armor.
Yeah, so basically it's what the Snakowskis found.
Right.
But now it's not wearing the dress either.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know. It's a weird one. And so there we go.
There it is.
There's the Flatwood monster and the Frametown monster.
Which does exist.
Or did exist. Possibly the Shadow Creature.
Yeah.
Who knows what it is? But it was out there in 1952. It hasn't reared its ugly little head since.
Right.
But the township holds on to the lore, and as they should, they celebrate it annually.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a great story. Like I said, we don't have any sightings since then, but I think the sightings that we did talk about are credible.
Right. We don't know what it is, but we know that it's real.
That's it in a nutshell. So, you got anything else on that, Jake?
No. It was a good one.
All right. I think in 2 weeks' time, our next episode, this one's going to be quite vast. We're going to have a fun take on it.
Right.
And it's going to be an episode on giants.
Which my wife is excited about.
Yeah. Giant people. Did they exist? Do they exist? What are they? What could they be? And we know there's tall people in the world. We got basketball players.
Yeah, Shaquille O'Neal and stuff. Yeah,
7'4" and all that kind of stuff. But we're talking giants here.
Actual giants.
And we have a couple of fun takes on it. Yep. And we hope that you're going to join us and see what you think about that.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the show and you want to help us out, then go ahead and give us a follow, leave us a review, and don't forget to turn on the automatic download button so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And as always, if you've had any experiences, stories, thoughts, comments, or questions, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email to cryptidfanatic@gmail.com. Let us know if you'd like to be on the show or just have your story featured during one of our episodes.